So immigration is a thing, and it's interesting because the timing. Well, we were discussing doing this a while back, and with things going the way they are now, the timing is very interesting. Either way, let's talk about immigration. Let's think about what this entails and some of the things where maybe it does or does not apply from business and maybe tax perspective. Today, I got Michael Carbone with me. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Well, it's always a blast having you on board. Unfortunately, every time I see you, I'm like I want to catch up, and then it's like 30 minutes later, I'm like, oh
Yeah,
wait, we have an episode we need to record.
right.
But just for the folks that don't know, you want to do a quick introduction of who you are, what you do, and why we should maybe take a minute to listen to you.
Sure, sure. So my name is Michael Carbone. I'm a solo attorney based in Staten Island, New York. I have two practice areas. So I do business formations and contracts for private professionals that are setting up private practices. You're talking doctors, nurse practitioners, occupational therapists, anyone really that's licensed by the state of New York. I help them set up their private practices and get themselves up and running so they could deliver their services to the public. And then I have an immigration practice. So I do family-based immigration work. So that's mostly green cards, fiance visas, naturalizations. And then I also do some humanitarian visas for crime victims and victims of domestic violence. Yeah, I guess you want to listen to me because my ear is to the ground when it comes to immigration right now. It is very much under attack, just the entire system, immigrants in general, the visa system, the court system, in every way, shape, and form. The new Trump administration is going to try to break it down, create delays, create chaos, and I'm following it literally on a daily basis, moment to moment, just trying to keep my clients updated, the public updated, and just have everyone aware of like what's going on and what we should be aware of.
And in terms of what they should be aware of, what I don't even know where to start with this, right? I mean,
Yeah, you could. I mean, you could start anywhere. I mean, pick anything, and between the executive orders that came out on day one, there was actually an announcement today that allegedly Trump is going to issue an executive order revoking student visas and other visas of anyone that protested the war in Gaza. So that is a very interesting take
yeah.
because that uh, abuts First Amendment rights. So the question is whether he can do that or not. It's not out yet, so I can't. I There's nothing to really comment on other than the fact that like that's a thought that's in his head, and those are things that he's doing as president. So
Yeah, and I guess just for the sake of the audience, look, let's just make it very clear here. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on. I'm pretty sure Mike doesn't either. We're trying our best. Just like this is what we're saying. This is how we
yeah,
right. Like this is how we're processing it. From let's just keep it the bias of the politics. We're gonna let's just try to leave all that out. So for anyone here who's trying to like look for an angle, find somewhere else, please. Like that's not. I don't want to hear it. I don't care for it either. Right.
yeah.
So with that said, let's work our way up, right? So for those people who came here illegally, there's no paperwork, there's right nothing. Is like how is that working for those folks right now?
So yeah, so I mean, there were a bunch of executive orders that came out directed at undocumented individuals. These are people that entered without inspection, meaning they crossed the border and did not appear at a port of entry. They did not talk to CBP, they did not arrive at an airport, they did not arrive at a cruise port or anything like that. They just walked across. And also people that came on legal visas and overstayed their visas. So once your visa expires or you violate the terms of your visa, you are effectively undocumented. So according to, the executive orders and the things that Trump says, if you are undocumented in this country right now, you're at risk. You're at risk of deportation. The targets seem to be right now on the backs of individuals with criminal histories. So, as you may have seen in the news, there have been a bunch of raids in Newark, New Jersey, in Chicago. I think there was one in Philadelphia recently. But the focus of those right now are individuals that are known by the government that have criminal histories. So you might have a conviction for a violent crime, a nonviolent crime. You may be a member of an organized crime or gang affiliated individual that they are targeting, right? So those are people that are at risk right now. And most people might say, okay, well, they're criminals, like let's get rid of them. Okay, fine. Take whatever perspective you want, but that is like top of the list, right? And what we're seeing is a couple of these orders coming out that are just generally targeted at all immigrants in the country. So you're seeing the ones that are directly targeted at undocumented people. I think that's the easiest, right? Like you can't, it's very difficult to sell to anyone like, hey, undocumented immigrants that have committed violent crimes should be able to stay here. Like I don't care where you are on the aisle. That's a tough conversation to have. So those are the people that are first on the order of trying to remove these people, deport them as quickly as possible. And the other component here, and like feel free to jump in because I could talk for 40 minutes straight without being interrupted, is this concept of expedited removal. So expedited removal was created under the most recent immigration changes, which were in 1997. So that was the last time we had major immigration reform. It was signed by Bill Clinton. And this idea of expedited removal effectively gives immigration officers, border agents, the ability to effectively deport you on the spot without going in front of a judge. And so if you enter the United States at a border, at a port of entry, at an airport, expedited removal is like available immediately. So if you're coming in and they find something wrong with your papers, your visa, whatever the case may be, they can use expedited removal on you. If you are already in the United States, you've made it past border protection, you made it through an airport. If you have been in the United States for less than 2 years and you can't prove that you've been here longer, you are subject to expedited removal. And basically what that means is if an officer considers you to be subject to expedited removal, they make you sign a piece of paper and you are deported immediately. You are placed on a line, you are detained, and you are removed from the United States. For everyone else, for anyone that's been here for longer than 2 years, and you can prove that, you have to go through the normal court process in immigration court. You have due process rights. You have the right to appear in front of an immigration judge and plead your case to not be deported. Unfortunately, you do not have the right to an attorney. That is only in criminal proceedings. So there is no legal right to a free attorney. Let's put it that way. You have the right to an attorney, to get an attorney, a private attorney that you pay for, but you cannot get one provided by the government, the U.S. government. So like those are the immediate things that I think are happening right now, but there are certainly more things that I can touch on that cover a wider swath of individuals in this country.
And that does make it interesting because like, the things that I'm hearing on my end is, for instance, a lot of our families, immigrants themselves, but they also, that generation, like my parents' generation, they were the immigrants that came in, and a lot of them were business owners. And so,
yes,
say what you want, but some of them or a number of them have employees who are maybe undocumented. Now, the way some of this shakes out is, for instance, depending on what business, where they are, et cetera, there are these, like, for instance, they might say, hey, I'm going to pick you up in the mornings from this bus stop, whatever it is. Like, this is our thing, so that, because some of them don't have cars. So, look, as an employer, I'll come pick you up. Maybe the other employees will meet there, right? Or there are these designated spots, whatever. Those spots have all cleaned out. Like, from what I'm hearing, like, the usual places where, like, the places where I pick up my usual morning crew, they're not showing up. On the school ends, I understand there were, the folks who came here, there were still a lot of, space in the schools. Like, I'm hearing, like, right now, none of them are here. A lot of them are missing. Sometimes the parents will be like, look, for obvious reasons, I don't feel comfortable bringing my kid to school right now. Fair, which is fair. And look, especially for me, when it comes to kids, adults are adults, right? I'm sorry, you're gonna figure your crap out. For kids, for me, that's as a parent, that gets me a little nervous.
Sensitive, totally.
So yeah, I mean, this does affect things. And correct me if there's missing steps. Another tier here, right? I guess in between would be maybe the spouse is in the process of, say, getting married to a U.S. citizen, or maybe or you pick, right? Dealer's choice, or they're in the process of getting their green card, or currently working through like work visa, school visa stuff. Like, take your pick of the litter.
Hmm.
to see if what the risk factors are, what's going on with them, what they could do, what they can't do. I'm gonna let you talk to it because I'm still deep in the weeds.
Yeah, sure. So that's like directly the kind of work that I do is helping families get green cards through their family members, through spouses, parents, children. And right now, it's still really early and too soon to tell what the long-term impacts are. I can guess. I could certainly take a guess. But the most immediate impact is going to be delays in processing, for sure. Like uh, under the Obama administration, it was on average taking anywhere from 4 to 7 to 8 months to get a green card through your spouse who's a US citizen, right? Then the Trump administration came in and those numbers started to get a little bit inflated. And then COVID like blew those numbers out of proportion. So it was taking sometimes people 2 years or more to get a green card. And then under the Biden administration, those numbers started to get back down to normal figures. And so people were seeing approvals, I don't know, somewhere between like the 6 month and like 12 to 13 month mark. Under Trump 2.0, I think we're looking at a time period that I have no idea, to be completely honest. As I'm meeting with clients, as I'm meeting with prospective clients, I sort of say, like, buckle up, like, be prepared to be waiting a considerable amount of time. And the reason being is really twofold. So I don't know if you saw, I think this was 2 days ago, maybe it was on Monday. Well, I guess Monday was 2 days ago. There was an effort by Trump to effectively notify all federal employees that they have an option to resign immediately and take an 8 month severance pay or continue working for the federal government with the understanding that they must follow very strict requirements that are going to be put in their in on their plate. And so that gobbles up certainly USCIS, which processes applications, DHS employees, ICE, CBP, like the immigration component of the federal government is massive. And so these people are effectively given a choice, and let's say everyone says, okay, I'm out, right? Like, I'm accepting the severance. You now don't have people to process applications,
Hmm.
right? So those just sit there. The other side of this, the other side of this is, let's say people stay, right, and they're there. One of the standards that were established during the last Trump administration was this concept of extreme vetting. Extreme vetting was a way to delay applications. It was asking for things that aren't required under the law. It was intentionally delaying cases. The new standard is maximum vetting. Now, I guess you tell me what's worse, extreme or maximum? They both sound the same. So like I don't know which one is more stringent, but I mean clearly the message is like we're going to do everything in our power to make it as difficult as possible to obtain a green card, to obtain a visa, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the tools that they used in the last administration to add instant delay to cases was what's called a request for evidence, or RFE for short. And so requests for evidence are typically used in limited circumstances, right? Let's say as a part of your application, you have to provide your marriage certificate and you didn't do that. You're going to get a request for evidence, right? And they're going to say, hey, you're supposed to provide your marriage certificate. You didn't do that. Please provide it, right? That makes sense. Under Trump, they're going to start asking for things that you really don't either need to provide, or they're going to ask for more evidence of something that you've already provided. So you need to prove that you've been living with your spouse and you provide 3 months of utility bills. They might come back and say, we want 10 months of utility bills. Well, you can't provide that. If you haven't been living with your spouse for more than 3 months, you only have what you have. So these are ways to slow down applications and just add time to the process. So, like, the long answer to your question is like, there's definitely going to be a little bit of chaos and delay in just having normal applications processed. And we're talking all applications. These are for people with absolute squeaky clean records that have very well documented cases. And the flip side, people that don't have a perfect case and might have, a criminal conviction here. Maybe they have a DWI on their record, something like that. Which, look, it might be frowned upon in a sense, but it's not an immediate denial. It's not a basis for denial. So I think that for starters is the biggest risk right now for people applying. And that also means that there's going to be a delay in your ability to gain access to work authorization and travel permission. So you're going to be sort of stuck where you can't really be deported per se because the application itself preserves your status, but then you also can't work and you can't leave the country. So that's a predicament that people need to really prepare for is you might be waiting a really long time and you might not be able to work while you wait and you certainly won't be able to travel.
So, is that kind of in that realm of what is it like the permanent residence as opposed to like a green card type situation?
You're talking about the difference between applying for a green card and already holding a green card, like someone who actually has a green card already.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if you have a green card, you have to remember you're always technically deportable if you commit an offense or you do something to make yourself deportable. So we're talking anywhere from the range of committing a crime to staying outside of the United States for too long. So if you spend more than 6 months in one trip outside of the United States, you start triggering a presumption that you've broken your status. Okay. Now you can overcome that with evidence that this was a temporary trip, there were extenuating circumstances, you maintained your residence in the United States, you did this, you did that. But once you've spent more than a year outside of the United States, you no longer legally have a green card status. So you become deportable. So, for green card holders, look, you can still work, you can still travel, unless and until something changes where there are further restrictions on green card holders, like you can continue to live your life however you've been living it. But understand that by virtue of being a green card holder and not being a US citizen, you're always subject to like higher scrutiny at the border, at airports, places like that. So it's never a guarantee. I mean, it's basically you're granted permission to live and work and stay here, right? It's like a driver's license. If you get too many tickets or you get the wrong kind of tickets, they can take your license away. And so that's similar to the green card. When you leave and you fly out of the country and you come back, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get back in. That's not a problem. But now there might be more stringent questions that they ask you when you return. Typically, you come in, you go through customs, and they go, "Oh, where'd you go?" "I went to visit family." "Nice. How was it?" "Great. Thank you. Welcome back to America." You might get more stringent questions returning back to the United States. So just be on guard and be prepared to, answer those questions. Make sure your documents are up to date. If you are close to renewal, renew that green card. Don't walk around with expired documents. That's not going to help
Probably not a
you.
smart thing.
Definitely not a smart thing. And if you do, here's the other fun part is like green card renewals, that might take a really long time. So fortunately for now, when you apply for a new green card, the receipt notice that you receive will grant you extended status. It'll typically extend your green card as long as you carry the documents together. So if you're carrying the green card and the receipt notice, you should be in the clear. Do not walk around with an expired green card, even if you applied for renewal without that receipt notice. You got to have them together. Expired green card and receipt notice for the renewal. Those are the keys to the kingdom. Like that's what protects you.
Okay, fair enough. So, I mean, at this point, we know I'm not going to rely on timelines, but what are the different ways for one to be on the path to or get a green card in the first place?
That's a loaded question. There's a lot of ways. So I can tell you that based on the work that I do, the most direct path is through what's called an immediate relative. Those are spouses of US citizens, parents of US citizens, and children under the age of 21 of US citizens. That is like the fastest track to a green card. And that, on average, that timeline typically was anywhere from 7 months to, in worst case scenarios, 2 years. But I don't know, like I don't know how long that's going to take at this time. But other paths to the green card, I mean, you can get a green card through an employer. I don't do employment-based immigration work, but there are visa classes that you can then, through your job, have your job petition for you to have a green card. So that's one way. And as a part of that application, you could add beneficiaries. You can add your spouse, you can add your children. There's also, you can get a green card through asylum. If you are granted asylum, you go through the whole process and you're either granted asylum through the asylum office or in deportation proceedings. You can get a green card that way. There are green cards for crime victims. So I also do U visas. So U visas are very interesting. So if you are the victim of a qualifying crime, now there's like a list of them. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's like 20 different crimes or 18 or something like that. And if you're a victim of that crime, you help police and law enforcement in the prosecution or investigation of that crime. You've suffered severe mental or physical abuse as a result of being a victim, and you're admissible to the United States. And there's you have good moral character. There's a couple of other requirements. You can get what's called a U visa, and the U visa will grant you temporary status. You can work on a U visa, and then after holding a U visa for 3 years, you can then petition for a green card. There is the diversity lottery. So the diversity lottery is literally a lottery meant for countries that have low immigration rates. So we're talking countries where people almost never come to the United States. So those countries, citizens of those countries can put their name in a hat, basically. And if they are selected in the diversity visa lottery, they can apply for a green card and come and live in the United States. I don't do those cases, but that's another path. I mean, the list goes on. There's a bunch of different ways, but the most common are family-based and employment-based green card paths. You can also do a fiance visa, right? So let's say you're engaged, your fiance lives overseas. You, as the U.S. citizen, can petition for them. They come here. You have to get married within 90 days. That's like 90-day fiance on TLC. Same concept. And then once you are married to the U.S. citizen, you can then have them petition for you for that green card. So, yeah, I keep going. There's a bunch of different ways, but I would say those are probably like a huge percentage of the ones that people are most familiar with.
And so, in these cases, right, would one be able to try to vie for multiple different methods, or you kind of like, you got to pick one, dude?
No, it's a good question. Yeah, you can, someone actually asked me that the other day. Yeah, you can apply through multiple methods. So it's really like whichever one can get you a green card fastest, then you do that. But if you have the money, because keep in mind, this is not cheap, right? So like if you have multiple paths to gaining a green card and you have the money, go for it. But most likely if you are like, I'll give you an example. So the U visa right now, right before Trump 2.0, there is a 5 to 6 year backlog to obtaining a U visa. These are vulnerable people. These are people that were victims of crimes, and we're not talking like shoplifting. We're talking sexual assault. We're talking kidnapping. Very, very serious crimes. 5 to 6 years.
Jesus.
Okay. I had a consultation with someone who, for all intents and purposes, was like definitely eligible for a U visa. Okay. And halfway through the conversation, he goes, "So my fiance is a U.S. citizen. Is there like any way to like have her petition for me?" And I was like, "Yes, that is way faster than going through a U visa. I wish you told me that sooner." Like, so in that instance, that individual can technically apply for both a U visa and the green card through their spouse, and whichever one gets approved first, they get, so be it. So yeah, if you have the money, the time, and you're eligible for multiple things, really, I would say really people that apply for multiple green cards in that situation are typically people who are not eligible for a green card through like an immediate relative. We're talking like people that might be in like deportation proceedings and they might be eligible for asylum, but they're also the sibling of a U.S. citizen. That's another fun category. So sibling, and by fun, I'm putting it in quotes and I'm being extremely sarcastic. So siblings of U.S. citizens are considered fourth preference category. And the wait right now for most countries is around 17 to 18 years.
Jesus.
If you are a citizen, yes, if you're a citizen of India, Mexico, Philippines, or China, you are looking at anywhere from 20 to 27 years to be available for a visa, to wait that entire time. for a visa.
So so what for 17 years you're gonna try to fly under the radar? Is like what does that mean?
So that's yeah, so that's another that's a crappy component of this process because you're in a situation where in order to adjustment of status is the way to get a green card inside the United States. Consular processing is the way you do it outside of the United States. Okay. If you want to be eligible for adjustment of status and you're a sibling of a US citizen, you have to hold legal status for all 17 years, which ding 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 is usually not likely, right? It's possible, right? Like you could be here on a work visa that's renewable indefinitely and great. Like then just live your life, keep working here, and when it comes available, you apply for that adjustment of status for like 95%, and like that's not a real statistic, I'm making that up, but like a lot of people are here on a visa overstay and they don't have lawful status. And so they have to leave and go back to their home country to continue the process. Well, guess what? There's something called unlawful presence. So if you've been in the United States for 6 months but less than a year, and you've had unlawful presence for that long, and you leave, you trigger what's called the 3-year bar. That means you cannot return to the United States for 3 years. If you've been here for a year or more with unlawful presence, you trigger a 10-year bar.
Jesus.
Okay. And so the moment you leave the United States, you trigger that bar. And the only way to shortcut that process and not have to wait 10 years is to apply for a waiver.
Good luck.
The waiver is not available to siblings of US citizens. So you are in a predicament where you can apply for that process. A visa can become available, and then you're in the United States, you have to leave, and then you don't have a way to come back in. So what you could do is your sibling could apply for you, you could leave, and you'll have to wait that 10-year period and then another 7 years on top of that. So like you could basically spend your life outside of the United States, and then eventually when the visa becomes available, you can apply and hopefully get that green card. But yeah, it's crazy. There have been no major forms of immigration legislation since 1997, and the system is broken. I mean, it's broken. It doesn't work in the way it was intended. I think there needs to be a reform. I don't think we're going to get that in 4 years, but there are certainly ways to fix the system that doesn't have to make it so ridiculous for people. Why is the wait that long? It's just it doesn't make sense.
It's something I keep going back and forth on. I mean, I guess for me, I try to look at as many angles as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I think that's definitely gonna have to be a conversation for another day because the way I think about it has too many facets to discuss within this whatever time we have left.
Yeah, we could do a 7-part episode if you want.
I mean, we might end up doing it, man.
So whatever each episode can be themed on a different topic. This could be I could talk for hours.
I mean, I would hope so, being the subject matter expert and all. And you know, and I do appreciate the way you break it down, right? Because, I mean, there's obviously gonna be a lot of people who are kind of in varying stages, right? But you know, there are a lot of people who look. I did the right steps. I came here the right way, right? You know, I came here through work, came through whatever, and you know, those who are butting up against that deadline now, they're like, hey, what does that mean if things get delayed? Like, am I gonna get somehow scraped up and like thrown in a cell somewhere? And so for me, it does give me some peace, I guess, in that look, if you're getting close, like you said, if you're getting close to that deadline, don't wait, don't mull around, don't sit on this. Go put your filings in, so at least you have a record of like, hey, we're in the process, and again, documentation, proof. Well, I know, and this is, I'm sure that there could be lots of facets to this, but what happens in the event where, let's say, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a girlfriend, maybe boyfriend, whatever it is, but you have one person is a citizen, the other person is not, and they have children born in the States. Like what are the factors that we should be looking at, and you know, what are kind of the things that we want to be sure that we have kind of nailed down?
You're saying the situation where one of the spouses is undocumented or lacks status. So yeah, that's an interesting question. So I mean, look, the family certainly needs to make plans for presuming, you're together, you don't have to go file for custody, right? Like, so that's not a situation, but you do need to plan for that situation where that undocumented family member is getting scooped up in a raid or taken into custody. What I've been trying to do is I've been a part of a couple of these like know your rights trainings. And I think the most important thing that people need to understand is like, you do not have to do everything that ICE says, right? It's very similar to local law enforcement. You have rights under the Constitution. They cannot just enter your home without a legal search warrant signed by a judge unless you let them in, right? If they come to your door and they say, knock, 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 it's ICE, we're looking for, this person, you do not have to answer the door. You do not have to let them inside your home. Now, if they present a judicial warrant that's signed by a judge, you do have to let them in. However, ICE usually does not do that because the process of obtaining a judicial arrest warrant is much more complicated, and ICE would rather rely on you not knowing your rights to come and grab you than go through that process. So, in most instances, if you are encountering ICE, you have the right to remain silent, as you do with any police interaction. So you do not have to answer any of their questions. You can give them your name, you can give them your address, but I would not tell them if you are not a citizen, if you are not a green card holder, if you do not have status, I would not admit that you are a citizen of another country, because immediately admitting that allows them to detain you. So I think that's really important. Obviously do not present fake documents, do not lie, but you do not directly have to answer where you were born or what country you're from. A lot of people from certain countries will have like an ID from their country. Like I know a lot of Mexican citizens have, I think it's called like a matricula consular. Like, do not show that to ICE, okay? Because once they know that you don't have legal rights to be here, they can detain you and they can immediately put you in deportation proceedings. So like that's number one. Remaining silent and also saying you do not want to answer their questions until you speak to a lawyer. So that's really important. If they show up at your house, don't answer the door. You do not have to answer the door. If they say, it's ICE, open up, you could say, do you have a bench warrant? Do you have a judicial warrant? And if they say no, you say, I'm not talking to you. Please leave my property. And they have to leave. They can't come inside. So I think that those are like really important measures to keep in mind if and when you are interacting with ICE. So I would say like that, knowing your rights, knowing what ICE can and cannot do is really important to protecting yourself and protecting your family. So it's not, I think a lot of people are misinformed and they think like, if ICE shows up, I gotta go with them. So in most instances, you can ask, am I free to go? I'm not going to answer your questions. And I think there was something, I saw something the other day that, this, I forgot the guy's name, whoever the like border czar is, he was saying they were having very difficult times detaining people in Chicago because there were people that knew their rights and it did not allow ICE to detain these people. So I think you're going to see a lot of like know your rights seminars popping up in your cities, and the more the merrier. I think this is true for citizens, non-citizens. Like, you should know your rights, right? If the police stop you, if ICE stops you, you don't have to speak to them. You don't have to answer their questions. You can give them your name. You can give them your address. Other than that, you don't have to answer their questions. Now, look, if ICE stops you and you're a U.S. citizen, so be it, right? Like, leave it up to you. But you could tell them you're a citizen. You could show them your driver's license, your passport, whatever you need to show them. But for everyone else, like, there's no incentive for you to comply with them, because that immediately allows them to place you into deportation proceedings. In the realm of, the context of like families, is like, do everything you can to protect your family. Obviously don't like break the law and like fight these people. But if one of the family members is a U.S. citizen, they certainly have rights to that, to have custody over that child, and you don't have to worry about the child being detained unless that child is also undocumented. So I think the bigger concerns are mixed status families families with both parents are undocumented, but the kids are citizens. I think those families should look into ensuring their children's protection by, I would say there are a lot of undocumented people in this country that have family members that are citizens or green card holders. Put them in contact and with your children and create a plan for if and when ICE shows up and you are detained, what happens with the children. So you want to make sure that you have guardians. You know, I don't know if you need to go as far as filing family court proceedings to allow your family to take guardianship over your children, but certainly look, I'm not a family lawyer, but certainly look into that because that might be an avenue to at least protect the children and make sure that they are not in a situation where they're like, I don't know, placed into foster care or something. Like that's a nightmare. We don't want that happening, certainly. So I think I answered your question. Like I don't, you know,
And
it's just
it's interesting because, you know, I did tell you there are a lot of business owners where their employees just kind of turned up missing because they don't want to risk things. We've had a lot of children in the school system. You know, my wife being a teacher herself, we have friends who are teachers. They're all saying the same thing. Magically, and it wasn't like slowly the kids started not showing up. It was like all at once they just stopped coming, right? Just everyone's just sucked into a vacuum, disappeared. Again,
right.
Look, you want to talk about the morality or legal bias, or rather like the political bias? I don't care. Right? Like you can discuss that with your friends or in your bar room or whatever the hell. I don't care, right? But the point here is going to be then. I heard something troubling, and I can't verify. So let's just start with that, right? It's not like my immediate someone. It's just someone I know told me this happened to someone in their circle. So
Okay.
it was I'm pretty sure it got resolved. But the fact of the matter was, at some point, I think it was in Jersey, someone got scooped up. I have a green card. Like, what are you doing? Like, why? Like, so apparently they got taken away for a bit. I don't know what happened after. I'm assuming they got released because whatever, right? Now, one of two things, right? What happens if, for whatever reason, someone gets scooped up erroneously? And secondly, what are forms of documentation that you should always have from whether you're in the process or an actual citizen, right? I would assume, and this is my ignorance, if you're a citizen or whatever, if you have a driver's license, I would assume that would be like the first easy step, right? Like I'm not expected to carry my birth certificate wherever I go, right?
Right. Right. So yeah, so I guess the first question is a little bit difficult to answer because this is going to happen. People with green cards, people with legal status here are going to get scooped up. And I think that becomes a question of whether their civil rights were violated, right? And I would urge those people to reach out to a civil rights attorney to consider suing ICE, suing the detention facility. Like you should not be detained if you have legal status and there's no reason, you know, you're not deportable. There's no reason for you to be detained. Like that's your probably immediate recourse is litigation. Other than that, I'm not really sure like if there's anything you could do to prevent that because if these people are gonna like law enforcement in general violates people's civil rights all of the time. So there's no distinction here because it's immigration that it's going to be any different. So that's something to be aware of. And then in terms of documentation, if you're a green card holder and your green card doesn't expire for quite some time, like your green card is enough, right? That shows your lawful status. If you are in the process of, like I said, applying for a renewal of your green card, you want to carry the green card that's expiring and the receipt notice. Now, if you are in that situation where you came in on a valid visa, you married a U.S. citizen, or you were already married, and you're applying for that green card and it's pending, you're not going to really have something you don't have. You don't really have status, but your status is protected while that case is pending. So you want to carry the receipt notices for that stuff as well. Carry around your identification, whether that be, you know, your passport or some other local state, you know, that's the other interesting thing that comes out of your question is like here in New York City, I believe you can get a driver, at a minimum, you can get an identification, even if you're undocumented. I don't remember if they extended driver's licenses to undocumented people. They might have, they might not. Some states have that, some states don't. So the driver's license alone doesn't necessarily indicate status. So as a US citizen, I don't know if we're at the point where I'm going to tell you, like, start walking around with your passport, but we might get to that, to be completely honest. I don't know the depth of how far they're going to go with these raids, but it might get to the point where you got to walk around with your a U.S. passport is evidence of citizenship. So you don't have to carry around your birth certificate. But a driver's license alone is not necessarily evidence of citizenship.
Fair enough.
So that's something to understand. And then, if you are fully undocumented, you do not have any path to status, you're in a tough situation. You might be able to get that state ID if you are in New York City, but if you're in a state that does not recognize those, you're sort of out in the wilderness, and it's very risky. So there isn't, I would say, unfortunately, using whatever ID you have from another country is evidence of citizenship, and they can use that against you to deport you. So I wouldn't necessarily show ICE officers your passport or like a state ID from another country, because that could put you at risk. And then another comment I want to make on one of your previous comments about kids not going to school, people not going to work, there are certain protections in place that these parents can call the schools and say, what are you doing in the event that ICE shows up? Okay. Because I want to know. Like, I have friends that work in schools, and their principals have said, if ICE shows up, we're putting the school in lockdown. So it's very important to, like, call the school administrators, find out what their plans are if and when ICE shows up at the school. And then for business owners, you do not have to let ICE officers behind the counter. So if you run a restaurant and there's a counter where you can only get past it if you're an employee, you do not have to let ICE pass that. ICE is allowed to enter any public space, but they are not permitted to enter the back of your private business unless you give them authorization to do so. So if you are the owner, if you are employees of a store, of a restaurant, of a business, speak with the owner, speak with the business owner, and find out what their policy is on dealing with ICE agents. Because if they show up, you could say, we're not permitted to let you back here. And that's a safe way of protecting possibly undocumented employees from being at risk of being scooped up. So I think that's just some important guidance for people to be aware of.
And would they be able to essentially camp out the business? Like, like, all right, you're not gonna let me in, and we'll just wait outside.
Yes, of course, yes, they can. They can camp outside. ICE can do whatever they want, but are they going to do that? No, because they have a list of people that they have to capture. They're just going to go to the next place and probably try again another day. But by virtue of preventing them, they might think twice and go, I don't want to deal with people that are going to block us from coming in. So we'll deal with that later. That's just, to answer your question. Yes, they can camp outside. Will they? Probably not.
I mean, that's something that I heard recently, and it wasn't even just because it was like an undocumented issue. It was more of like you're getting in the way of my business. Like, what do you guys do? Like, no, you're not gonna come in here harassing my customers. You're not gonna. No, you see that door over there? This is my business. You can step out. If you have another problem, you're gonna call my attorney. How about that? Right? And so, just for people out there, there's a. I know we're talking about immigration. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the news right now, but sometimes it's literally just a simple matter of like, get the freak off my get out of my business. Get out of my house. Get off my property. Get off my stuff. You're messing up my money is dependent on me being able to service my customers. Right. And so if you are walking into like my nail salon, my hair salon, my restaurant, my whatever it is, get off my job site. Leave. Like, I got things to do, and my customers, my clients aren't gonna give a damn because like I had to stop everything because you guys decided that you wanted to like peruse through my stuff. No, get out. Leave.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think that there will be tremendous disruption. I mean, we're talking the fact of the matter is that there are millions of undocumented immigrants in this country right now, and many of them work in industries that you are familiar with, right? We have people in the restaurant industry, we have people in the landscaping industry, we have people in construction, right? But it goes into things too that we're not really thinking of, like agriculture, farming. Right. So if ICE comes in and captures these people and takes them away, what is the supply chain going to look like? What are the after effects of all of this? Right. You might not be able to go to your favorite restaurant. You might not be able to get groceries at the store because there isn't someone there to pick them or farm them, or there's no one at the meat packing plants to pack your food and things like that. And so I think it's really important that people understand that, like, wherever you stand on the side of this topic, there will be ramifications regardless to whoever you are. It doesn't matter who you vote for or what you believe in. This will have wide reaching effects. And I think people should be prepared for that impact. Businesses might shut down. You might not be able to get groceries at certain supermarkets. Like it's going to be very interesting. But just to tie into what you said, like, you have rights as a business owner, right? Some parts of your business are private and some are public, right? If you have a restaurant, people can walk in, right? But you can also refuse service. So within the confines of the law, right? We're not talking about
No, no,
discrimination
no.
here, but you can refuse service to people if you find that they are disrupting, they're being disruptive, or they're there for some nefarious purpose. But like, you do have rights as business owners, and in the context of immigration, if you don't want ICE officers like coming into the back office of your business, like, tell them to leave.
Fair enough. That's, I guess it might be one of the few times where it may be a good thing that we're such a litigious country in a way. Like,
Sure.
we actually had to have a conversation with, as a family, because, I'm born and raised in New York, right? But that's, I still, we still are within a community where you might be American born, but you will still be raised in a household. Now, I'm not the only one, right? Where your first language that you're going to speak is going to be your mother's tongue, right? And it's not going to be English
Yeah.
or American English or whatever the hell you want to call it. And so part of the problem here is that, we're already hearing rumblings of like, hey, some of these kids are getting harassed or bugged by what appears to be ICE agents because, they're not really speaking English. So that's like almost like a flag of like, hey, were you born here? Da, da, da. I'm like, don't talk to my kid. First and foremost, do not talk to my child. Do not talk to my child.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Right. I mean, if they're not a minor, I don't know. Right. But for me as a parent, just for me, my ignorant, Staten Island raised, Brooklyn like bred, like, don't talk to my kid. Right? I don't give a damn who that is my child. Do not talk to them. I will sue the living crap
Yeah.
out. I will call every attorney that I could buy for. Like, I'll rain hellfire on you. Do not talk to my child. Right? And so, but I mean, the jokes aside, like, for me and my wife was like, hey, God forbid something happens. Like, what are we gonna do? I'm like, what can they do? We have birth certificates. I was born here. We've been married for 7 years. Your status is fine. Like, what are they gonna possibly say or do? God forbid something happens. Our family has an army of attorneys. Let them try. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's arrogant. I
Right.
don't care. Right? But so for me, it's for those who are unsure. Please, like Michael said, Mike, we're still gonna go for your contact, right? But find someone who actually has the authority to consult you on these things, right? Don't talk to your bar buddies. Don't talk to your neighbors, right? Talk to the proper attorneys and the proper people who know the law and who are actually equipped to help you with these issues, right? I don't care if you are undocumented. I don't care if you are in the process. I don't care if you are somewhere in between, right? Or just unsure. Maybe you have family members. Maybe you have friends or neighbors that you're concerned with, right?
If you saw the other day, there was an attempt to freeze all federal funding, grants, and loans, and that directly affects nonprofit organizations that are providing these services. So I think wherever you are in your local community, there are if you just type in like immigration nonprofit, you're going to find a ton of them that come up. I'm a member of AILA, which is the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and like, the organization is geared for lawyers, but there are countless resources on their website for individuals to learn about their situation, to learn about the laws, to learn about resources. So, it can't hurt to go there as well. And they're doing a great job at just like keeping us informed, us immigration attorneys. I mean, I think I've been on like 15 different phone calls since election day just to keep up. I have one on Friday at 1 o'clock where we're just I am keeping my ear to the ground, just trying to stay as informed as possible so that I can keep people as informed as possible so they can make decisions about their lives, about their situation.
And it's gonna be very interesting to see how this unfolds. I mean, if I'm being honest, I am a bit surprised that it kind of escalated this quickly. I'm just completely honest, right? Maybe it's just because we were born and raised in New York. Like, we're like immigrants are everywhere. Like, what do you mean they're gonna start crowd? I mean, down south, fine, right? Like, but we're New York, really? They're gonna have anyway, right? But I guess
Yeah.
part of me, I still have this gut feeling that there are certain industries that will maybe not be bothered as much, right? And I guess this is just my cynical follow the money brain, right? Of like, do you really? I mean, like for instance, like you said, years ago there was a thing with especially with the agriculture industry of like, they're stealing our jobs. Like, then you come do it. Like you were saying,
Right.
I'll even pay you more.
Right.
I'll even pay you more, right? Come and do it. And like they're like, when they tried that experiment, a whole slew of people were like, okay, yeah, no, not doing this. I don't care how much you pay. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it, right?
It's yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No,
I
I
just
mean,
cut you
and
off.
so for me, it's like I think it's just there's certain industries that's understood that like I don't. There's no realm, or rather, it's very unlikely that anyone's going to work in certain industries, right? Like in restaurants, it's notorious that dishwashers are absolutely needed, but no one wants to do it, right? Like, and you talk to any chef, they say, look, I could replace my chefs if they go down. That's fine. Someone can fill in that spot. My dishwasher goes down, like they call out sick or they just walk off the side. Like I'm in a world of hurt, for instance, right? So for
Yeah.
me, like I think there's certain industries that maybe it may not be as hard hit. Just my crazy theory crafted tinfoil hat, right? Just so for anyone out there, look, this is just my tinfoil hat, like weird thing. And I think a part of it is how long are they going to go on with this for? For some odd reason, I get this strange feeling again, based off of nothing. This is just crazy talk, right? That it's going to be like a not that prolonged thing. It's like almost like a shock and awe of like, look, just so you know, like it's like warning shots are being fired. Unfortunately, but it's with people's lives. But it's it's like, hey, look, in no uncertain terms, I'm gonna put it in your face, make it very clear to you that I took this drastic thing. How long this is gonna go for? For some reason, I don't know that it's gonna be for long. But again, this is not legal advice. This is not anything other than some random dude on YouTube with a tinfoil hat saying like crazy talk is a thing. Okay, so I'm just talking smack.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, I mean, look, I think we'd all like that to be true, but we don't know yet, you know.
Exactly.
Look, certainly he came in guns blazing, right? You know, like his whole campaign was like mass deportations now, and he's trying, right? And there will be pushback. There will be, there's a couple of his executive orders that have already been challenged in federal court. The birthright citizenship one got knocked down immediately, but again, I think there's going to be a pipeline of cases that are all going to the Supreme Court. And the goal here, in my opinion, is like, what can we get away with and what can we not get away with? And so we will try all of these efforts through executive orders and other actions. And the ones that get knocked down, we just take them to the Supreme Court and see what they have to say. And so I think that is what we're in the lookout for. But ultimately, we'll find out, right? And I think if a lot of industries are impacted severely, it's going to be an uprising, right? Like people, like all of these business owners, all of these people, all of these industries are going to be like, dude, like, like we need these people. There's no one that wants to do these jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kneecapping our industries for what purpose?
Yep.
Right. So
it's an oddity, right? For me, look, I'm not justifying either which way, right? I'm just trying to rationalize through the difference, right? And so part of it is, look, if you want to say we're not gonna only provide immigration status to highly skilled labor, fine, right? Then, because look, I am a strong proponent of like the things that we need are things that will innovate and and
100%.
maximize our productivity, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sorry, but like my level of hippie is like my diet, my like the chemicals in my house and stuff like that. But through and through, born and raised capitalist, so I still have a certain level of like, look, we still have to keep the lights on. We still need to be competitive. We still need all that. Now, on the flip side, for me, it's someone needs to do jobs that no one wants to do. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, whichever way you want. This speaks to my parents generations, even like people within my community. We will kill ourselves doing the work that no one wants to do, right? Because we have to put food on the table. We still have people we need to provide for, and sometimes this is the only option we have at the moment, right? Maybe we'll build ourselves up to a career, whatever it is. But sometimes we've heard it time and time again. I came to this country with like $5 in my pocket and nothing but brass balls, right? Like that's
right, right.
So people start somewhere. Now, if you want to make the argument of, look, we have plenty of documented, perfectly legal people here to work those jobs, fine. It is what it is, right? Again, economics is just, what I'm saying is the economics is weird, right? Like the policies versus how it plays out in the real world. It's a little, hopefully they'll fix that. No.
Yeah, look, I mean, look, you can have a policy all you want, but the impact of that policy will really determine whether it was an effective policy or not, right? Like you could say, oh, we don't want these people to do these jobs, or we want these people deported, or whatever, or, create the fictitious policy. If it is damaging people's lives, entire industries. It's like, that was probably a bad policy. Like maybe we need to pull that back or change it. It has happened countless times in this country. So, the Trump administration can try. They will be effective in some realms, and I think they'll be ineffective in other realms. And we all get to find out which side of the coin it comes out on.
And so for me, yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's just fix the policies. Do your job. Like I don't care. Look, Trump. I don't care Trump if it's the spaghetti monster. I don't care what it is. Your job is policy. Make the policy make sense. Again, right now the issue is that people have this love hate because it's this particular person. But I don't care who fills the seat. You have Congress. You have Senate. Do your goddamn job, right? Just make it work, please.
Yeah.
With that said, I guess just for selfish reasons, look, especially if you might correct me if I'm wrong, because I know we're running short on time. Assuming you are still in the process, like you're already kind of in that green lit area, citizen, green card, et cetera, you're not precluded from buying a house, owning a house, selling a house, having a business, running a business, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you have legal status in this country, you're a green card holder, you're a citizen, you're not prevented from doing any of those things. I mean, look, even if I'm pretty certain if you're undocumented, you could buy a house if you have the money, because you could buy a house, I think, anywhere in the world. But yeah, like that, like keep on trucking, until someone tells you you can't. Like, I certainly don't want to make an announcement and say, stop what you're doing, sell your business, sell your homes. Like, we're not there. And I hope we never get there. But, it's certainly good to be cautious and make sure that you're protecting yourself in any way that you can when it comes to your status and your ability to live, work, and thrive in this country.
And I think that's gonna be a good standpoint because I do again. I apologize. We were running late today. Well, especially if you are unsure, right, or if you know you need help. For me, my go-to person is, of course, the reason why he's here is gonna be Mike, right? So for those who need a consult, who need help with whatever, or just whatever it is, immigration, business, where can people find you or reach out to you?
Yeah, so Carbone Law. So my website is carboneattorneys.com. We have a button on our website. You fill it out, and we'll get back to you to set up a consultation. I have a YouTube channel where I try to cover a lot of these topics regarding immigration and business law, and just kind of demystify these complicated areas of law and give people an opportunity to learn something new, and also maybe do some things on their own if they're willing to go down that route. And so I think my handle is Carbone Law on YouTube, or something along. If you put in Carbone Law, you'll see my face, and you'll find that on YouTube. And then if you're old-fashioned and you want to give us a call, the number to my firm is 2.
That works. And you know what? I just looked it up. It is Carbone Law. So if you guys are curious, reach out. Be sure, look, again, the consult, some time, whatever it is, it might save you hours and weeks or months, years, whatever of agita, right? I know a lot of people sit there just worrying themselves silly. Just call someone, please. Call an attorney.
Right.
Call Mike. For anyone who has access or knows of any nonprofits, organizations, and so on and so forth, do me a favor, please comment somewhere or send me DMs, and we'll get that information out. Mike, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, it's always great doing these.
So if you guys have any questions, definitely reach out to Mike. I'll put his information down in the show notes. But until then, thank you for joining me, and let's catch you guys on the next one.